people say like you think it's risky to, go off on your own or whatever, but talk about working for a company for 30 years and then right before you vest into like some pension or something, you're gone.
All right, welcome to the Beyond Net Worth podcast. We are so excited to be here today. We thought it would be appropriate just to give a little bit of a background and intro into all the cool things we have planned for our podcast. And, the real background for me, from my perspective, is Kallan's my best buddy. And we've grown up playing sports together and hanging out, doing fun adventures. So you're going to get a little bit of that background into our lives as you listen. But really the thing we want to zoom in on is the process of starting a business. And I look at my friend Kallan and I see, hey, this guy is just as smart, just as disciplined, just as hardworking as anyone out there. And my prediction is that over the course of this podcast, you're going to see him, make the leap from having a 9-to-5 to making the leap to starting his own business. And we are going to bring on guests that they're not just people with money. They're people that have something to give back, right? We want everyone to come along and just like Kallan's my best friend, I want for him to have this, life of business. We want that for all of our listeners too. And so you'll have a unique perspective because Kallan, he's going to be asking questions and discussing things from the perspective of, someone who's about to make the leap. I have an existing business, so it'll be good for people who are already business owners to have the iron sharpens iron effect as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, it's like my big thing is finding people's path, or how do people find their path? Because like you said, I'm still trying to find my path, really. I'm still on that journey, and so I think it'll be good. And it's kind of, I think, like you said, this is a lot of my journey. One of the biggest reasons wanted to do this is because I'm at this point right now where I'm reaching out to people and I'm talking to people and I'm getting to know people and I'm trying to network and I'm trying to talk to people. Hey, what do you do? And how'd you do it? And how'd you get there? And just about them as people too. So I think it's perfect because for me, I'm going to come at it I haven't started a business. I've always wanted to, the usual kept me from doing that. And I've just, Ben's a huge inspiration for me on why. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because it's and if I, take the longer version, I've always wanted to start a business, right? That was my personality. I knew I wanted to do business. My dad worked for himself and I saw those benefits that he had from it. And so that's what I wanted. And when I was actually on my mission in Wisconsin, and I was thinking, okay, what am I going to do when I get back? What am I going to do when I get back? And I was like, what am I going to do? I don't know. And then I kept thinking about my dad. I'm like, well, my dad's built this nice business and, he's put his heart and soul into it. And I'm like, it's already there. I know I want to do business and he already has one established. So why don't I just go into that and kind of be the most amazing son, right? I used to think I'm going to go about my father's business, So I wanted, and here's for me, I'm I know this about myself. I learned this about myself, but I have naturally obedient. Okay. So I have always been very obedient. I've always been afraid of, disappointing people for sure. And my parents were, and it's I've always wanted to make those people, I've always wanted to be the one that makes them proud, that makes them happy, and so that's been a huge motivator for me. So I started working for my dad and, I put my heart and soul for 4 years. And one of the most, it was an amazing thing. I loved it, because I felt like it was my own. And that was the big thing is I was so invested because I'm like, this is mine. Like I felt like this was my business. This was my business. And so it was good. But over time, I started to want to get more into like, I wanted to start making more decisions. I wanted to start working more on the business than, learning the trade and the labor. Cause I feel like I had, maybe I was getting impatient. I was definitely like antsy. I was really antsy.
Well, impatience is a
Relative.
common trait for someone running a business. Like I have zero patience. So I think that's an indicator like, hey, I'm not patient with this. I need it faster. Right.
Yeah. And I wanted to make some, like, I wanted to have more influence on the company, and it didn't come, right away. And there's a lot of backstory in that. And then on top of that, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go to school. I've always been taught, get an education. And I'm like a first generation college student. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to do well there. And I was taking business admin, and I was like, I was getting really bored. I'm like, this is pointless. I mean, and truthfully, like we were studying in one of my classes, we studied the habits of highly effective people, like that was the class. And I'm like, okay, why am I here? Like, why? Like, I could read this book on my own. Like, why am I going to school? And then one of my classmates like, dude, switch to accounting. Like, if you're going to go to school, like, learn the language of business. Like, you want to do accounting. Like, that's what you want to do. And, like, that's what you're going to benefit from. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. That's so inspiring. And I was, like, super nervous to do it. And I ended up, because I'm like, I don't know if I can do it or whatever, or if I'll like it. I'm like, I'll just hop in and whatever. But what happened with that is I got really sucked into school, you know, and being an academic, and kind of got drawn into this path. And school really, and I really love, like, I was like so focused, and I was trying to be the best student in the world.
Yeah, 4.0 guy. That's just kind of
because
it's kind of how you're wired.
Right. Yeah. And so I did. And what happens is, they want you to do a certain thing. So they're trying to get you work for the Big Four. They're trying to get you to public or private. Like, it's, they kind of try to, throw you down this path. And so I got sucked into it. I for sure did. And I had like committed myself, like every day. I would tell myself every day, I love to learn. Like every day I would say, I love to learn. I love to learn. And like, I just convinced myself that I'm an academic, like I'm going all the way. And I'm like, I'm going to get a PhD, and I'm just going to do what these guys do. And I'm going to teach accounting, whatever. So, but I knew as I was getting, put down this path, I'm like, okay, we started researching Big Four. Like I did a recruiting trip at Tanner LLC, which is like one of the biggest CPA firms in town. And
don't forget the Harvard.
Oh yeah. I was
Harvard Business School.
It's so
apprenticeship.
Oh yeah. So, it's called the Summer Venture Management Program, SVMP. And you get to spend 1 week at Harvard Business School as an MBA student. So you get to sit in their classrooms from their professors. It's like one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. But
Dwayne Wade.
So I met Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union. I have a photo. Gabrielle Union sat next to me in class, and I'm just like sitting here, and everyone's just like, guys are taking photos of me, and I'm so grateful for that. Whoever you were, thank you. And she signed my notes and stuff, whatever. That was really, really, really amazing. It's kind of funny. I was in my essay to get there, because you with scholarship stuff, this is kind of a little sidetrack, but still, whatever. It's fun. I was like, I'm a first generation college student. I'm a cancer survivor, and I said I was a Mormon at the time. I'm a I was kind of trying to play in the minority, the minority play.
Nice.
So anyways, that was amazing. But going back, Tanner, I was doing these recruiting trips to look at this, and I was talking to these guys about their lives, doing public accounting and working for the Big Four. And they're like, oh yeah, we 80-hour weeks, they would just work you to death. And they pay you $50K and work you to the core. And I'm like, that doesn't jive with me. I don't like that. Like I'd rather be with I want to like have time with my family, you know? And so I'm like, okay, I don't want to do public. And so, but I'm still getting I'm feeling a little bit of pressure, but on the same time, the flip side, I'm like, I just got a degree in accounting. I feel like I should use it. Like
Totally.
that was the hardest. That was almost equally as motivating is I'm like, I've never done accounting. I need to do accounting. So I just got this degree and I've never done it.
The sunk cost, right?
Sunk cost.
We'll dive in. We'll have my wife on at some point, but she's a X-ray tech, radiology, right? And, you know, she started her protein cookie business. And I was basically like, look, like she wanted to do both at the same time, cookies and X-ray. I was like, look, like you worked so hard for X-ray. I could see why that'd be tough, but you love the cookies. Like that's what's fun for you. That's what you want to make money in. Like go for it. It's more flexible. You're the business owner where you're always going to have a boss if you're an X-ray tech. And it was really hard for her to give up all the education years that she put into it. Same thing with you, right? You have an accounting degree. I guess I better be an accountant.
Yeah, like I better learn how
what a waste of time if I'm not, right?
Well, it's like my dad at the time, like he wouldn't even let me do like bank recs. Like I work really, really hard, like what I'm doing. And so I was too valuable in all these in the operations in like
Right.
Either building jobs like in the shop, just like getting stuff done there or whatever. So it's like there was no time, there was no time for me to dilly-dally around for, in the office.
Say all the numbers.
Yeah, like it was kind of, and so I started to feel like, well, I'm kind of just, I want to be able to work on the business and like I have this. And so it was really, really hard. There was lots of other stuff that happened,
Right.
with my dad and whatever, but it was really hard. But I'm like, okay, I found a company that jived with what I wanted. I was like, okay, I can go work for this company in Vegas. It was a big company. I would be in-house. I'd be in the private industry, as they would say. And I would get all this experience. They have all these benefits. They have an amazing career path plan. Like, I don't have to work 80 hours a week. I can just like, I can have a life with this job. And so I took it, and it was like, part of me, like I had so many times I'm like, okay, I can't do this. Like I was so emotionally attached to my dad's company that I had literally almost a panic attack about having to tell my dad I was leaving. And it was really, really hard, but I wanted to get experience too. Like I wanted to feel like I wanted to be able to feel like I could create value if I ever came back to the company and stuff like that. But so I went down to Vegas and I worked and I did, accounting for a couple of years. And going back to how you've inspired me is we have so much in common, but there's also some huge differences. And we were at Lake Powell one time. This is when you were working at UTBS. Like this is like a moment of like kind of where I'm at here today. And so you're working for UTBS and you took like a week off to go to Lake Powell, and I got to go to a few days with you there.
Oh yeah.
And we were fishing, and you're like, you were talking about how, they're giving you a hard time. Like they're mad at you for taking time off to go to Lake Powell and whatever. And your dad was like, oh man, you need to be more responsible or something like that, like, and I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, I would never have done that. If they said I needed to be there, I would have like been there, and then I could never have disappointed my dad either, thinking I'm irresponsible and like, oh, I'm just going off and going to take a week off for Lake Powell, and I'm not as hard a worker as he is or whatever. But what I always look back to that, because you quit your job there because it didn't align with the life you wanted. Like you wanted a week at Lake Powell with your family. This is at least in my mind how I'm perceiving it. And so what you were doing didn't jive with that lifestyle. So you quit. And you found something in your life that jives with your lifestyle that you want. And so over the years, I've seen how successful you've been with your business. But not only that, but it's like, it's not just about the money with you. And it never has been. Like you don't really talk about it. You don't really toot your own horn ever. I mean, you probably will the most today in this podcast than you ever have to anybody, especially publicly. You're probably thinking, oh, that's not true, but
Tooting the horn is not on the agenda.
But more importantly than success, I've seen you be able to have so much time. And like, you've had so much time, you've been able to do some amazing things. Like, you've been able to travel all over the world, and it's just like, wow, like, that's amazing. Like, I love that. Like, you have time for your family, and you've been able to, because like you've been able to take care of some of these hierarchy of needs. Like, you're now at the stage where you're just focusing on relationships, almost, to me, at least from my perspective. And that's really amazing. And that's been inspiring. So, one of those big moments for me is when we went to Costa Rica together, and, you spent forever, like all night, just talking to me about like life and like, what are you doing at this company, and what are you thinking? And you're just like trying to like building me up, and saying like, hey, you got all these qualities. Like, I see these qualities. I have these qualities. I see these qualities in you. Like, what are you doing? Like, you shouldn't be.
Well, it's almost like you see someone you love, right? And you're like, hey, why would I hide the secret from them, right?
Yeah,
like
the secret.
Why would I leave them in the dark? So, I know from personal experience, like, kind of not to sound like a bro, but we were workout buddies, right?
Yeah.
Like, and not for any vain reason. Like, we wanted to succeed and get stronger, like in sports, right? And so we pushed each other to the max. And, there's very few people that in that one thing I could say worked as hard as me, right? But it's like, dude, Kallan, I know you've outworked me in this area. It's like, you could do it in business too. Like, you have the discipline. You even have an accounting background that I never got.
Yeah.
I never tried as hard I obviously did school. I graduated, but like, I never put my heart and soul into it. You have a full extra set of skills I never had. So it's like, we've had a lot of those moments where, at the risk of offending my best friend, it's like, hey, you should probably do this. Like, and I feel like it's a problem I have. Like, my wife is like, hey, when we go out with friends, don't tell them to all quit their jobs. It's like a problem, right? Like, hey, like, you're a sharp person. Why don't you just change your llifestyle? Like, you know? Anyways, but yeah, so it's something that I feel like is inevitable for you. It's like, I know, I've taught, it's like a stock, right? Let's invest in the stock as early as we can, because it's just going to appreciate over time, right? The same thing kind of for you. Obviously, there's factors at play, right? Like, you have a wife and 2 kids, where when I was doing my business, like, I didn't have a wife or kids. So there's a little bit of a risk factor. So lesson learned, like, but here's the thing, like, you got a wife and 2 kids, but pretty soon you're gonna have 4 kids. So it's like, let's just do it at this point, right?
Yeah, it's better to start early.
So that's kind of the idea is that I think the earlier you can is helpful. And I think when we bring on our guests, you're gonna hear from them their stories, and you're gonna say, oh, well, that guy did it with 5 kids, like,
yeah.
I have friends starting a business. This guy today, I'm thinking of specifically, 7 kids. He's starting a business. He's never had a business before. He's got 7 kids on the line, but he's realizing it's going to be a better life, so it's worth the risk and the dip. Maybe if there's a small dip in income before it goes back up, it's going to be awesome for his family in the long run. So I think you're going to hear stories of people that we bring on. And that's my main goal. Hopefully other people catch on and they listen to it too. But if it's just us expanding our network, we're both going to benefit, and we have 5 viewers of video. This is going to be what I would call a success. You know what I mean? Because we're both going to expand our network, and we're both going to transform as people, and that's going to be a lot. And we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I hope so. No, all the above. I mean, I love a lot of people. I love people, right? I like being able to talk to people, and that's like a huge part of why I wanted to do this, and so kind of going back a little bit, working, the last couple years, at least when I was in Vegas, I wasn't very happy, right? I wasn't very happy. And so kind of going back along the like priorities, you know, and I feel like you never got caught up in, the school game, like trying to be the best, like the most prestigious school person, like, you know what I mean? Like trying to be valedictorian of a school, like never got like sucked into that. Or like I had the most prestigious internship, or did you ever get caught up in that?
Not really. I mean, I had my eye on a tech job, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, you have to back up even more. Like, I never thought past. Sounds ridiculous, but I never really thought past sports. So like, my goal was to play college football, right? And so like, my mind never really went past that, like to what I was gonna do when I grew up. Like, you know, like the typical like lawyer seemed to be like an obvious play, or businessman, but I didn't really understand what that was. So I had my eye on like a tech sales job. So there was like, you know, really prestigious in my head, right? I don't know if that was true or not, but it was like, okay, this is my goal. I'm going to college for this tech sales job. And then, you know, I had the moving company all through college. That's what I was running, was the moving company. That was my income. That was my job. And I would basically do this tech sales. I graduated. I got the job. Like that was like what I'd call like my little target internship, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I would do 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I would do this tech sales job. And then 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. I would do all my callbacks for all the calls I missed. Like I would take the lunch break. I would call as many people back as I could. And then I'd call the rest after work. And I was like, what's going on? Like this moving company, I'm spending 2 hours, like I'm spending my lunch hour and like 1 hour after. And that's doing more for my life than the whole rest of my schedule. Right. And it's like, you dream up in your head, you know, what it's going to be like working at a big tech firm or a big accounting firm, or, you know, and you have an aha moment. It's like, okay, my best case scenario here is not as good as my worst case scenario here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it falls together, I guess I would say. But yeah, like in general, like I'm not a perfectionist, which helps, right? Mm-hmm. Because I can anything that needs to be perfect, I can delegate or train, and I'm okay with risk, right? So there's little things that help, but yeah, I never really had like I never got caught up in like you know, prestigious grades or internship or even money. Like money has never been like the main focus. It's just been a byproduct, right?
Yeah, and I've noticed that a lot. And that's the sad thing is I got caught up in that. I got caught up in like, okay, I'm going to work for a massive company, right? And I'm going to be the CFO, right? And I'll make, and this is like in my mind, I'm like, I'll make $500 or $1 million a year working for this company, you know, and $500,000, $500,000.
I just gotta pause you. That reminds me of my favorite scene from The Office, when Dwight's like, "Welcome to Hotel Hell. Check-in is now. Check-out is never." And Jim's like, "Let me get this straight. In your wildest fantasy, you're running a bed and breakfast with the devil." And he's like, "But I haven't even told you my salary yet." And Jim's like, "Go." And he's like, $80,000.
To him, that's so big.
Anyways, just remind me of that when you're like, I dreamt of this salary as a CFO.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Like for you, you're like, okay, like you can make that money easy. You know, like you don't have to put in 20, 30 years. You know, in order to do that. So I got caught up in that. I was really distracted in that sort of playing that game. And I did. I mean, I worked for a multi-billion-dollar company. I mean, they rev more than the NBA and the NFL combined, and it's like it was like big and like huge path. Like it's a good path. You know, they take care. You know, they took good care of their employees, and I could have had I know I would have had a great life. I know I would have been successful there had I stuck it out. But going back to like things are more important than money. I feel like my heart has been here in St. George, and like my family was here, my friends were here, like you guys were here, and I'm like, we would do those trips together and stuff. I'm like, man, I miss this. And Ben Smith was in town at the time and stuff. I'm like, man, like I was like kind of jealous, and that you guys were here and felt like you're having so much fun. I wanted to be there, and I started also in this time because I wasn't really happy with where I was at. And I'm like, man, what am I doing? I'm like giving my life here to this company, and I'm going to have to put in 30 years. I'm going to it's the climb the corporate ladder. Like I've signed myself up to climb a corporate ladder, and like the paydays are amazing at the end, right? They are 20, 30 years, but like you have to move around a bunch.
And that's a lot of time for money.
Yeah,
right?
It's a ton of time for money, and it's like I started to feel a little bit of resentment, and I kind of started to isolate this time. This is one of the darker times in my life. And because I was isolating myself, but I started to feel resentment towards people who were like making it, and people that had the life that I felt like I wanted. And it's a weird thing is like if you felt that before, like if anyone's felt that before, like they'll know what I'm talking about. Like you kind of talk down on people that are successful. You explain away why they're successful. Oh, they had this and that and whatever, and you just kind of like you just get in this mindset of like can never be me or whatever. And so I was kind of in that, and going back to some of these things like with you and like the Costa Rica talk where you're like, dude, like you got to think different. This is not like what you want. Like you got to go with what you want. And going back to like the Lake Powell thing, it's like I think about that. Like, okay, Ben wanted this. He wanted to be here with his family, with his friends. He wanted to travel all over and whatever, and he wants to live here, and he's making it work. Like he's doing it, and that was huge for me. And I'm like, okay. So I got there was a transition period. Like I got offered a promotion at the promotion I wanted at the job. And it would have been a good pay bump, and it was great. And at the same time I got
Did it involve a move though?
No.
No,
this one was no move.
Okay.
But I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to move after the next promotion because that's how you climb the ladder.
Sure.
And I got so just all this stuff's like happening, it was really exciting, whatever. And I got a call from a company here in town, saying, hey, do you want to move back?
Right.
Like, and it was really, really hard again. Like it was really, really hard for me to leave because one, I feel like I'm disappointing everybody. Like it's just when I get in like my loyal list or my obedient side or whatever, I'm just like, I have a really hard time with those conversations, those hard conversations.
Yeah.
And feeling like a quitter, kind of thing. I don't know. I shouldn't think like
I
that,
remember that conversation, like where you're like, I feel like I gotta give him at least 2 years. It's like,
yeah,
you don't.
I'm a good employee.
Like, I think that's the old way of thinking, and yeah, it sucks as an employer. Like, there's high turnover, right? But it's just not the rule anymore. Like it used to be like, all right, 2 years is like, if you don't at least put in 2 years here, your reputation is shot.
Yeah.
And your honor is down the toilet. It's not that way because it's not good for the company you're working for if you don't want to be there either. Right.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, yeah, they might disagree at first, but if your heart's not in it, and so I remember those conversations where it's like, hey, I got to give it at least another year. Like,
yeah.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah. How long did you spend at your tech company? Like 2 weeks?
I think
it wasn't long, was it? Or a month?
No, I think you're right. I think it was exactly 2 weeks, and I gave 2 weeks notice. And it's not to be okay. Here's another backstory too. Like, this was my dream. Like it was.
I know you were really looking forward to that job.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, big corporate job. Like I got a big corporate job with the tech company.
It wasn't like a diss. Like it wasn't like a joke to me. Like this was. There was a lot of people I really respected. There's a lot of people I really respected there that I made commitments to, they made commitments to me as well about what the job would be like. That wasn't necessarily the case, but the point is like I took that seriously, and like I also have pride in my work, right? Like anytime I've taken a job, I've tried to do a good job at it. So it wasn't like a willy-nilly thing. Like it wasn't easy at the same time. Like there was even thoughts about just sticking it out, but like that would have been really bad for me. Like, and bad for the company, bad for my future. Like it would have been a lose-lose, I guess you could say. But you have to understand that it wasn't like the plan was to stick it out and do a good job and really be a high performer so that I could work my way up the ladder. That was my only intention going into it.
Yeah.
So it was like a really, like, it wasn't like the 2 weeks thing wasn't a plan. Like that was just, I just was so shocked about how my dream wasn't really what I thought.
Like the dream of working at a tech company.
Yeah.
Yeah. What the actual work life wasn't as what it cracked up to be.
Yeah. The tech company life is supposed to be something different than what I experienced, right? And just working at any company at all. So
yeah, sometimes people say like you think it's risky to go off on your own or whatever, but talk about working for a company for 30 years and then right before you vest into like some pension or something, you're gone. This happened to one of my wife's uncles, like right before he was going to vest with a big chain, which he had like done really successful with. They cut him, no reason at all. They just had to make up stuff saying, like he was super good and his stores were amazing, but kind of sad. So there's a risk involved in that. But so I'm in this kind of a darker time, feeling resentment towards people, whatever. But I get out. I come here to St. George, and the company I'm working for is amazing. They're really, really good. It's been great. It's been amazing working with them. It's compared to where I was at in Vegas, like I just have so much more flexibility. It's been really nice. But I've started, as I've been hanging out with you guys more since I've been here, and I've started to kind of, come out. We've been talking more about
come out.
I should come out of my shell.
Come out of your shell.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. So like right now I've been feeling so much more different. Like I've been more motivated, and another thing that you inspired, we went to lunch together. We went to lunch with someone together, and so this is another pivotal moment that I was actually trying to get to. And you taught me a huge lesson there, and it was that like you need to surround yourself with people like this, but like you shouldn't be afraid to reach out to people and get to know them and build that network. Like that's one of the most powerful things, like especially with your business is I know you've had a lot of success with organic growth and through your networking, and it like really unlocked the door for me. Like I had it but I lost it, and like I feel like it's come back, where instead of being like, oh, I'm not good enough to talk to this person, or I'm not rich enough to talk to this person, or I'm like all those things, or I don't have this internship or this experience or whatever. And so you just like, you talk yourself out of getting to know amazing people because you feel insecure about yourself because you don't feel like you're where you're supposed to be, whatever. And it's like, you're like, no, whether you're successful or not, like you have to swallow whatever ego you think you have, and you need to just reach out to people and talk to people. So this podcast means a lot to me because it's almost like we're just going to record a lot of that, like me doing that, it's almost like we're not taking people to lunch, we're actually going to come here to the studio and do the podcast. But it's like, I was going to do that. This is where I'm at in my life, is reaching out to these amazing people, hearing their stories, seeing how they found their path and how they got to where they got and what makes them successful and successful entrepreneurs and things like that. So that's kind of why, a big reason why we're here. And you know, if we're going to talk a little bit about the name, like, you know, Beyond Net Worth, something that's important to me is these people that it's not just money driven. You know, like success isn't about money. Success is about relationships, at least my belief. And in a way, like you've used or leveraged your business and your business success to build those relationships, right? And things
Totally.
like that. So I am really looking forward to the people we bring on to hear about them, but hear how they measure success. Like, what is success to them? It could be because they're following their passion. You know, it be like they're a football coach or whatever, or I mean, maybe it doesn't make a lot of money, but at least they said, I am having courage. I'm gonna, whatever the risk, like I might be sacrificing X, Y, Z, but this is what I'm passionate about, and that's why I'm going to go pursue that. And so I hope we were able to get that and find guests, you know, that can be inspiring and can inspire people to do that, to follow their passions. And that's, you know, we're talking a lot about business because a big passion of mine was one of my passions. It's something I've always wanted to do, but I've, you know, like you mentioned, I have, I think schools, and like I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for school, but it's almost like they brainwash you to be, I'm like way more risk averse after going to school than I probably would have been had I not. Like, it's like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And then you start like, oh, but what about this? What about this? What about this? Or you start talking yourself out of stuff. Like even the other day when I brought up interest rates with investing, like rising interest rates, you know, and talking about that. And you're like, screw that. Just go buy a house.
Like, well, yeah, you got to look at it. It's like interest rates are historic low, and for a real estate investor, the average lifespan of their locked in rate is 3 years, and then they'll change it again.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, there's a lot of backwards thinking as far as like risk and everything.
What do you think of business? One of the things, it's like you start thinking you're smart, especially when you get degrees. And like whether you realize it or not, sometimes you just think, oh well, like you almost try to be too smart, like people time in the stock market kind of thing. Like I don't think you really can you time the market? Does anybody
Only Nancy
really?
Pelosi. Keep going.
Let's change subject. I was like, do you want to get into it? Okay. Yeah, no, but that's where it's like, okay, then you start talking to yourself, and backing up, like you need to be smart. Like you can be very strategic. There's a lot of amazing tools. The only thing I'm trying to say is that it takes risk. You know, it's a risk reward to do certain things, and sometimes it takes. Yeah, you have to have courage to take risks.
Yeah, and especially you need to get someone that you really trust that can say the level of risk, right? So like, let's say that I have let's say I have a business idea, right? I have mentors that I can go and I can say like, hey, at the risk of looking dumb to you, I'm going to run this business plan past you to see what you think. And, you know, because that's really why people don't reach out, is because they're like, at the risk of looking dumb, right? Like I have never formed a big investment group. So let me pitch this to you and see what you think. So the same thing with you, like you're looking at to just start a business, right? Like I'm not going to let you make a dumb business plan, and you have other people in your life that aren't going to let you make a dumb business plan. So you have to be willing to reach out, and hopefully we can do that a little bit. Like we've talked about having people write in, and we have like a short segment where they'll write in a question. I don't know at what point we'll get to that, but it would be really fun to, help people where they might feel like they don't have anyone else to reach out to, because someone giving you a business plan and you're presenting them something and they love you, they care about you. It's like, yeah, I would do that, or I would change this part about it. So the risk really drops when you are able to pitch it to someone else. Every mind you get, every person that looks at your plan, the risk keeps going down. So you just have to be willing to be vulnerable and say like, I'm going to give this a shot, you know, trusting that they won't look at you like, oh, you should have obviously known this. They're not. They're going to say, I see this problem. And if you fix this problem, I see this as profitable. So that's a big thing that I would say to that point.
Yeah. And I hope that this podcast can inspire people to do that. And I think there are others probably out there like me who could relate to me in this. I don't think you're this way, but I've had a huge like fear of failure problem. It's been a huge thing. So you have had that. Oh, you just you just like raised your hand. Raised your hand like, yeah, let me call on you. So yeah, I've had like, you know, like the fear of failure. And I was actually listening to it was like a TED Talk from Mark Rober, the NASA dude that started a YouTube channel. He did an experiment. He created like a coding game, and but he didn't tell anybody that it was like actually an experiment. And he had them like, you have to do this game, and it kind of teaches you coding in a way. And so one group he did where you can have as many tries as you want, no consequence. Like just try again. And so they did another group that they started with 200 points, and every time they failed, they got deducted 5. And I don't have the stats in front of me, but it was like the group that didn't have that like feel like they had this risk failure were succeeding dramatically more.
Yeah. No consequences.
No consequences.
The consequences in their head, right?
It was in their head.
And it's easy. It's easier said than done. Like you see people go on a podcast all the time, like fail fast, fail hard, fail often. It's like, that's easy for you to say, like now that you've had some practice, but when you're first starting that, it's hard.
And some people are really afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Like truly. And so the thought of starting a business where it could fail, or the idea is not right, or whatever, it's just paralyzing to them, and they just won't do it.
Well, eventually you get to the point where you have a lot of micro failures, right? Like you're going to avoid the big failures, but I keep a list of, I don't think of them as failures, but I will think of things that I could change or improve on in my business. And I have a list, and every list, we have a meeting every Tuesday where we go over all the action items, things we need to change, failures. So it's like you eventually, like you, instead of thinking about the failure, when I think of a failure, it pops in my head, failure. I don't even like take the time. I just put it on a list, and we have a dedicated time every week where we go over our failures or our problems or the areas where we could improve. So you're really desensitizing yourself to failure and things you could improve on, insecurities. Like just get used to it. Have a high tolerance for failure and stress, and start to think almost like a surgeon or a doctor, where they start to triage things in their life. Like they have 10 patients, right? Which patient needs the most attention now, and focus on that patient. The one that you can do the most good for, and then move on. And if you can change your mindset about failure or problems, it's going to go a long way.
No, huge. It's huge. And so, yeah, I hope that's what we, I can work through, and also those that are listening can work through too. So that's another huge reason why for this podcast, because for me, this is like me taking a step, like starting something, right? Because I talk about this. Oh, this would be great. This would be. I talk all the time. Never do anything. Just
you're passionate about it, and it's gonna be fun to watch that passion be channeled.
Yeah. So I hope, like for this, it's like, okay, I hope to get that. Like I want to start something and be able to work through a lot of those. I feel like even this podcast, like a lot of those things that are hard about starting something, and overcoming some of those fears, about it. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be good. This is my way of being like, hey, I'm going to develop this weakness that I've had. I'm going to see if I can make it stronger.
It's exciting, man. And I think for people that already have existing businesses, like for me, I have a business, but it's still on level 1. Like I have a long way to go before I'm where I need to be. And we're going to be pulling people, level 50 entrepreneurs. And so me as a level 1 guy, I'm just going to be soaking it all in and just learning. And there's a ton of contrasting perspectives and questions and things that we can both bring to the table. So I think the sky's the limit for the growth that we can experience as we do this.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, but for you, something that's been important, we almost named the podcast Business Best Friend.
Best Friend in Business.
Best Friend in Business. Why?
Yeah. Well, we almost named it that because that's like, for me, I'm the type of guy, I'm an extrovert. And so you're my best friend, but if I'm being honest, I have a lot of best friends.
Yeah, that's true.
I got a whole roster of best friends. And so it's like, you're not like, yeah, you're top of the list, but like everyone I talk to, this is not something that's like exclusive to you that I'm giving you this secret in. It's like people that I love, like I'm telling them all the same stuff.
Yeah.
And so we're bringing everybody along as if they're our best friend. Everyone needs a best friend in business that they can bounce ideas off of, that they can know has their best interest in mind, that they can come to. And so, I mean, yes, we're best friends. So that's one reason that it applies, but also we want everybody to feel like they're in that kind of environment instead of just, a couple of bros saying, you're unsuccessful if you're not doing 3 a days in the cold pool in the gym. And if you're not making $7 million, what are you doing? It's not that aggressive. It's more like, hey, you're my best friend. Let's see what we can do together.
Yeah, for sure. And see these amazing stories from amazing people, you know, and maybe the lesson at the end of the day is how they measure success is a different something else, and so yeah, I'm excited. I think it's gonna be a good thing. So
love it, man. Episode 1, the pilot episode of Beyond Net Worth. Write it down.
All right, it's a wrap.